Hi everybody, my name is Nisha Khan and today I'm going to be talking about color anomalies, specifically anomalous trichromacy, dichromacy, monochromacy, achromatopsia, and tetrachromacy. In order to understand these color anomalies, we need to understand what that is, how our visual system typically works, and how we typically perceive color. The human eye is capable of seeing about 1,000,000 colors, and a color anomaly is when this capability is affected, however significantly. These deficiencies are often equated with the term colorblindness. Possible causes are genetics, that it's hereditary, which is the most common cause, the onset of disease like diabetes, multiple sclerosis, glaucoma, physical or chemical damage to the eye, damage to the optic nerve, and age. You typically go to ophthalmologists and optometrists for diagnosis, but the Ishihara test is online as well. It's the most popular test, and essentially, it's colored dots of numbers and paths. And if you can't see those colored numbers and paths, you have some sort of vision deficiency. Color anomalies affect various aspects of daily life, especially education, learning colors at a young age, or engaging with graphics and illustrations with colors that you have difficulty with. And there's a lot, and people with color anomalies have restricted driving due to the difficulty in distinguishing stoplights on a bright day. And in personal life, deciding what to wear or being afraid of what people are going to judge about what you're going to be wearing or the color, and people not understanding or empathizing with this deficiency more generally. Now, let's take a look at the typical visual system of the human eye. It all starts with light. Light is a band of electromagnetic radiation. A quantum of that is a proton, which is what reflects off of our environment and into our eye. Humans can only see visible light, which is this rectangle over here. And this visible light influences what we choose to wear on a night out or to class. And light goes through various layers of the eye in order to be processed. It goes through the cornea, which is the surface on the outside where where contact lenses sit. The iris is this muscular diaphragm that regulates light entering the eye by expanding and contracting the pupil. And the pupil is where light enters the eye. It's just a hole. And the lens is what focuses light to the back of the eye. And in my opinion, most importantly, which is like my opinion, the most important part of the eye is the retina. And the retina is a light-sensitive membrane in the back of the eye. And it contains rods and cones, which are photoreceptors. And photoreceptors are structures that respond to light. They transduce light energy into neural energy. They're very important to vision because that's where physical light energy from the world is transduced into the neural energy of the brain. It helps the brain make sense of what we're seeing. Now, rods are photoreceptors specialized for night vision. They don't process color, while cones are photoreceptors specialized for daytime vision, fine visual acuity, and color. The distribution of these photoreceptors are not constant over the retina. Cones are concentrated over the fovea, and rods are concentrated in your periphery. And the very last step in information processing in the eye is that these signals from the photoreceptors are sent through various cells and then are sent to the brain through the optic nerve. Now that we know the biology behind it, it's time to take a look at how this physiology influences how we experience the world. And we have 3 cone types that help us discriminate color, in which color is a psychophysical property, turning that light energy into neural energy. And those 3 types of cones are S cones, which are short wavelengths, what are colloquially known as blue cones, M cones, which are medium wavelengths, green, L cones, which are long wavelengths, red. And these 3 cones are what make us trichromats. And these are especially important in terms of the principle of univariance. And univariance is a principle that posits that it's an infinite set of different wavelengths can elicit the same response from a single type of photoreceptor. This essentially means that one type of photoreceptor cannot make discriminations based on wavelength. And rods obey this principle as they cannot sense the differences in color. And understanding this depth of how we typically perceive light unveils how people with color anomalies see and experience the world. 1 in 12 men and 1 in 200 women suffer from some form of color vision deficiency. It may not sound like a lot, but essentially that means you probably know someone or you know someone who knows someone else with a color anomaly. So let's take a look at these anomalies. Anomalous trichromacy is when all 3 cone types are used to perceive light, but one of the cones is weakened. And that weakened cone is slightly out of alignment, making the degree of color deficiency variable. Some people are so mildly affected that they are unaware of any defect until tested. And this comes in 3 types: deuteranomaly, which is the weakened or reduced sensitivity of M cones; protanomaly, which is that of L cones; tritonomaly, which is that of S cones. Now, what happens across all 3 types is a hereditary issue. It's that these issues come from the X chromosome. Men are more likely to develop it since they only have 1 X chromosome. And in this situation, all cones are present, just one cone type acts a little weird. The visual system remains the same. I mean, it remains the same in the sense that light enters the eye and hits the retina where the rods and cones are. The only difference here is that the light energy being transduced into neural energy is different because one of the types of photoreceptors is wonky. And now there's deuteranomaly, which occurs when M cones of the eye are present but dysfunctional. Their cone's absorption spectrum is shifted toward L wavelengths. And this affects about 5% of white males and 0.3% of women. And this is a part of 75% of all occurrences of color blindness, which essentially means that deuteranomaly is a very popular or very common color anomaly. Now, with deuteranomaly, it's more difficult to distinguish between red and green hues. M cones in the eye detect too much long wavelength light and not enough medium wavelength light. Red, yellow, green, and brown appear similar, especially in low light. There's an article by The Cut about a woman with deuteranomaly. And growing up, she talked about how she didn't like it when children tore wrappers off of crayons because that's what helped her tell which color was which. And she also discussed how she learned to adjust by remembering the different shades. And how she now uses Enchroma glasses, which helped her discover the differences between her vision and normal color vision. We'll talk about Enchroma and Enchroma's glasses shortly. Protanomaly occurs when L cones of the eye are present but dysfunctional. Their cone's absorption spectrum is shifted to M wavelengths. It affects about 1.08% of white males and 0.03% of women. With protanomaly, it's more difficult to distinguish between red and green hues. L cones in the eye detect too much medium wavelength light and not enough long wavelength light. It's similar to deuteranomaly and what colors they can perceive and whatnot. Now, back to Enchroma. I'm not sure if you've heard of Enchroma glasses, but I came across it a few years ago. Enchroma is essentially this eyeglass wear company that assists people with color blindness. And there was a study conducted by the University of Granada, and they took an in-depth look at Enchroma and its history. Specifically, that Enchroma used to claim that the glasses cured color blindness, and when in reality, this product is only for people with deuteranomaly and protanomaly, and that the glasses may not work for people with severe red-green deficiencies. And also that now they claim it as an assistive device. The study showed that Enchroma glasses will not perceive new colors, that people will see the same colors, but in a different way. This is good that it allows people to distinguish new colors, but it does come at the detriment of other colors, making room for confusion. And the conclusion of the study was that there was no significant improvement in recognition or arrangement of tests. Now, tritonomaly occurs when S cones of the eye are present but dysfunctional. It's separate from deuteranomaly, protanomaly in the light that it's a part of blue-yellow color blindness, which is much less common, and it's more difficult to distinguish between green, yellow, orange, and pink hues. I'm very tired. Please excuse me. And now dichromacy. Dichromacy is where there are only two cone types in the retina, and it's the total absence of function in one cone type. People with dichromacy lack the ability to see certain colors due to the missing cone type. And dichromacy comes in three types: deuteranopia, the absence or complete dysfunction of M cones; protanopia, that for L cones; tritanopia, that for S cones. Now, I'm sure, or I'm hoping you're probably thinking about how familiar this sounds. And that's because it is. What we know colloquially as red-green color blindness consists of these four groups: deuteranomaly, protanomaly, deuteranopia, and protanopia. And while trianomaly and tritanopia are less familiar, they also are grouped by the term blue-yellow color blindness. And these are grouped in such a way because of the effects of these deficiencies are similar. Now let's learn more about dichromacy. Across all three types is a similar hereditary issue, that it comes from the X chromosome, that men are much more likely to develop it than women. In this case, one cone type is missing or is entirely dysfunctional, and taking one cone away, the number of possible color combinations drops to 10,000. We used to have, with trichromacy, our regular normal vision, we have 1 million color combinations. Now, the visual system remains the same in that the cones in the retina are different, but the information is processed in the same way. And deuteranopia occurs when the M cones of the eye are absent, and you can only distinguish 2 to 3 different hues, while a person with normal vision sees 7 hues. And this affects 1% of the male population and 0.1% of the female population. People with deuteranopia are more likely to confuse mid-reds with mid-greens, bright greens with yellows, and much more. And here is an example of what normal vision would look like and what deuteranopic vision would look like. And protanopia occurs when L cones of the eye are absent. It affects about 1% of males and 0.02% of women. Now, when it comes to red-green color blindness, there's no treatment available, but tinted lenses may enhance perception of certain shades for specific tasks. In other words, that's how Enchroma is somewhat helpful. Now, the effects of protanopia are that people with such have difficulty distinguishing between blue and green and red and green. For example, they're more likely to confuse some blues with some reds, purples, and dark pinks. And tritanopia occurs when S cones of the eye are absent. It's somewhat rare, affecting between 1 in 15,000 and 1 in 50,000 men. And people with tritanopia usually have fewer problems in daily tasks than deuteranopes because the longer wavelengths are perceivable, and the longer wavelengths in our society are the most important ones. Red means stop, like you see that on stoplights, on stop signs, etc. Now, the effects of such is that it's more difficult to distinguish between blue and green, purple and red, and yellow and pink, and it also makes colors look less bright. You can't see the difference between blues and yellows, but you can distinguish between reds and greens. While most occurrences are congenital, tritanopia can be acquired just like any other color blindness. There's a story of a boy in India who sustained a head injury while playing cricket, and he developed tritonomia immediately thereafter. Now, monochromacy is when either 2 or 3 of the retinal cones are completely absent, and it reduces vision to 1 dimension. This is a hereditary condition also known as total color blindness. And it comes in 2 types: cone monochromacy, which is the presence of only 1 cone type, or rod monochromacy, which is the complete absence of cones, and it causes significant visual impairment in bright light. Cone monochromacy is accompanied with a relatively normal visual acuity. It's a recessive X-linked disease and is recognizable in early infancy. And there are 3 different kinds. Blue cone monochromacy, which is S cone BCM, is the most common form, and green cone monochromacy and red cone monochromacy. Since there's more research about BCM, That's pretty much what I'm going to be talking about. The incidence of BCM is between 1 in 50,000 to 1 in 100,000 males, and it occurs almost exclusively in males, and researchers estimate that this may occur only in 1 in 10 million births for women. And severe forms of this can cause low vision, nystagmus, like rapid eye movement, which it decreases with age, or photophobia, which is extreme sensitivity to light. Now, the anatomy of monochromacy is that the fovea is typically packed with all the cones, but without 2/3 of the cones, there is a gap in the fovea. And the absence of other cone types influences how light energy is processed, but all other functions in the visual system remain the same. In rod monochromacy, cones are either completely non-functional, or missing. Since rods are specialized for night vision, there is significant impairment in bright light. It's a more common form of monochromacy, and it only occurs around 0.003% of people or less, and it has similarities to achromatopsia, which we will discuss shortly. The effects of rod monochromacy is that people with such are completely unable to distinguish colors. There's reduced visual acuity, they're subject to severe light sensitivity, nystagmus, abnormalities in how the iris operates, and high reflectance objects are white, while low reflectance objects are black, and the in-betweens are shades of gray. Now, the complete absence of cones in the fovea leave a larger gap than one in cone monochromacy. Extreme sensitivity to light influences the iris's expansion and contraction of the pupil. The rest of the visual system operates as usual despite the different information being processed. Now, achromatopsia. It's when the cone types are mostly dysfunctional or completely absent, and it also includes other visual issues. This condition is often related to monochromacy. It comes in 3 types: complete, which is the lack of any color vision, and it's often equated with rod monochromacy; incomplete achromatopsia, which is where there's some functional cones with mild color discrimination. It's typically less severe than the complete type. And there's cerebral achromatopsia, which is bilateral damage to the fusiform and lingual gyri of the brain, which are to your sides. The differences between monochromacy and achromatopsia are that achromatopsia involves other problems with vision in a more severe way. It leads to increased sensitivity to light, stronger nystagmus, and lower visual acuity. An area with the highest concentration of complete achromatopsia is in the Pingalap Island of Micronesia. Between 4 to 10% of this population has such anomaly, and that's significantly larger considering this is a very rare or uncommon anomaly. Cerebral achromatopsia is caused by damage to the V4 and leads to the loss of color vision, and it's bilateral, so it's on both sides of your brain. Loss may be total or partial dependent on the areas of damage, and it may occur separately or together with other cognitive and perceptual losses. Achromacore.org has short memoirs of people with this deficiency. A woman by the name of Megan ended up discussing her experience, that she was teased as a child and was asked many questions, that she faced education and job difficulties, and that she lacked independence from not being able to get a driver's license. Tetrachromacy is where there is an extra cone type on top of the 3 typical cones, and all are completely functional. This is a rare mutation that consists of ongoing research. It occurs only in women when the mutation occurs on both X chromosomes. It's not problematic, it's just that people see more colors on the spectrum. Some research argues that this is just a natural evolutionary advancement because it's just a richer color experience for people with it. And because this is a relatively new area of research, there are no mainstream tests for tetrachromacy. Current research, however, estimates that 12% of women are carriers of X-linked color vision deficiencies, and there's speculation that these female carriers might be tetrachromatic, but that is sparse and inconclusive. It's also that the sensitivity peak of the fourth cone may be between the L and the M cone. The visual system remains the same with the extra cone. There's an Australian artist by the name of Concetta Antico who paints her visual experiences. She calls it a mosaic of vibrant colors. In an interview with the BBC, Concetta talks about a pebble pathway, which most of us perceive as gray. But she says, the little stones jump out at me with oranges, yellows, greens, blues, and pinks. Here's an example of her artwork. She paints how she sees more colors than we usually do. There's no current cure or reliable treatment for any of the previously discussed anomalies. Researchers are continuing to break new boundaries toward this goal. There's also more research being done into other rare color anomalies that were not discussed in this presentation. Gene therapy on monkeys has provided the possibility for the cure and treatment in humans. They've tried to restore proper cone function in the eye. Meanwhile, the use of color filters, like Enchroma glasses, can temporarily assist with the daily struggles of color vision deficiencies. Now, it's important to understand color anomalies and its complexity. Being aware and empathetic to those with color anomalies allows room for them to breathe. People with color anomalies are often questioned or judged for their deficiencies. With the increasing demand for accessibility as well, more software developers are incorporating assistive technology for people with color anomalies. So everything is going in an upwards trend in terms of inclusivity and accessibility, especially with the help of technology and science. So thank you so much for listening to me. Let's just go through the references. I did do a ton of research because I was dealing with multiple deficiencies or anomalies. And that is it. Thank you very much.